Friends, this is Margaret,
Hi,
your
Sarita.
favorite Brooklyn broker. It's 2 o'clock on Tuesday where we spill all tea on everything real estate. At least real estate here in Brownstone, Brooklyn. If there's any questions you have or anything that's on your mind, if you're in the middle of a transaction, it's okay. I don't need to be your broker, but I'm here to serve. And if there's any tea I could spill and help for those of you who are in the middle of a transaction, call. I'm here for you. So what I thought we would talk about today is something that's happening actually in the middle of a transaction, and it involves contingencies. Contingencies we're referring to right now as mortgage contingencies. Mortgage contingencies is when you go on a deal, you want to buy a property, but you aren't sure if your property will appraise. What if it doesn't appraise? Then what happens? How do you cover it? How do you cover the gap, if there is one, on the appraisal versus the purchase price? So for that, you want protection. And you will ask your broker to put a contingency, a mortgage contingency on the contract so you don't lose your deposit. Your deposit could be anywhere between 5 or 25%, depending on the market you're in. Now, you may say, but Margo, that's a no-brainer. Of course we're going to put a contingency. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't you? Well, if you're in my neck of the woods in Brownstone, Brooklyn, it's a hot seller's market. Now, I understand from many of my friends whom I mastermind with daily, my friends who are in different parts of the country, who are rock stars in their neighborhoods, tell me it's a buyer's market. By them, buyers can pick and choose what they want. But that's not the case here in my neck of the woods in Brownstone, Brooklyn. So a buyer who really wants a property, it's a hot property, just came on the market, and there's a lot of competition, everyone wants it, and they want to avoid a bidding war, so they will remove contingencies. By removing contingencies, it gives that buyer a leg up with his competition. Even if someone else is offering more money, a savvy seller will say, let's just take the easy way. Sellers aren't looking for anything complicated or anything that might give them a migraine, that might fall apart. And yes, a contingency has a potential to cause a deal to fall apart. A buyer, basically it's a loophole for a buyer to bounce out of a deal. It happened to me once early in my career, and I vowed it will never happen again. And that is why it was like a week before closing. I was representing the buyer. Myself and the listing agent were continuing to negotiate even after the contracts were all executed. The buyer was still demanding more discounts. We so badly wanted this deal to go through, we even cut off our own percentage just to get the deal to the closing table. We kept negotiating. And wouldn't you know it? A week before closing, buyer bounced. Couldn't get a mortgage. And after that experience, I vowed never to do a mortgage contingency, ever. If you want the property that I'm representing, I don't want to waste my seller's time. If you're that serious about it, you gotta put up or shut up. Remove all the contingencies, remove any loopholes that would cause my seller any aggravation. And if you don't want it that badly enough, that's fine. There are other people who do. So that is why a buyer will remove contingencies. We'll put a nice down payment down and say, hey, I'm a cash buyer. Doesn't mean you gotta come to the table with suitcases of cash. That's illegal. And it doesn't mean you need to write a check for the whole amount. No. you're more than welcome to go get your financing. That's fine. But that's not the seller's problem. You need to come up with the money, whether it appraises or it doesn't. And of course, I'm always here to help you with the appraiser. I have worked with appraisers. I also know what has sold off market, so I can show that to the appraiser to raise the price, and I have. That being said, let's talk about the sellers. Sellers, when you're selling a property, it is for your best interest to remove all contingency. Now, you may say, you know what, I would prefer to have a higher offer, and that's okay. Some sellers say, I'd rather get a higher offer, get more money on the table, and take the risk that, you know what, it may not close. So this is definitely a preference of the seller, how he wants to go ahead and proceed with the deal. I'm actually wrapping up a contract that there is a mortgage contingency. Now, the reason for that, there's an exception for every rule I do. And the reason for that is because the price is a bit aspirational, which is fine. The buyer is fine. The buyer wants the property. It's a unique property. And therefore, he's paying an aspirational price. He wants it for its size and its location, and he's willing to wait. That's a caveat. There's a 6-month wait till we close because the seller has to vacate the property. And the seller is his interest, not just to get his price, but he wants a buyer who will have patience and who will work with him. And not too many buyers will do that. So, this particular deal, after 2 weeks, literally, I kid you not, 2 weeks of negotiating, not with the seller so much as his attorney. How many of you have had attorneys screw up the deal or have had deals fall apart because of the attorneys? Now, attorneys are doing their job. They're sharks, and they want to protect their clients. So they'll put lots and lots of gates on the deal. They're the gatekeepers to make sure this deal goes through. And when they see a mortgage contingency, they're like pit bulls. So after 2 weeks of literally every day on the phone with the seller's attorney, he's a smart guy, he's a nice guy, but he is trying to protect his client, whom he's had for over a decade, and he's putting a lot of gates, a lot of contingencies on this while allowing my buyer as a mortgage contingency. So he has a mortgage contingency, and the seller agreed to it because the seller wants a buyer who will have patience and not mind having his deposit sit and collect dust in his attorney's IOLA account for maybe 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, until as long as it needs for the seller to vacate the property. So, contingencies are a very important tool in negotiating a deal. When you Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when you're looking for a property and you don't want to overbid, or there's a limit or a cap of how much you'll spend, speak with your agent, speak with your mortgage professional, make sure you could swing it, present an offer through your skilled negotiator, your skilled agent, and say, hey, we're going to remove all contingencies. That will put you in the forefront, right in the front of the line, despite high offers. And I have been on deals where my seller chose a substantially lower offer, substantially. I mean by a few $100,000. Why? Because the seller said, hey, I have no contingencies. I can close this deal as soon as your seller is ready to close, and there'll be no roadblocks. And the seller didn't want any headaches, didn't want any complications, and that was his choice. It may not work all the time, but it certainly doesn't hurt to try. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's your option. You're always in the driver's seat, as I always tell my sellers. You are in the driver's seat. If your goal is to get the most amount of money for your property, then yeah, tell your agent, no problem. We can have this laced with contingencies. If it closes, great. If not, we'll start all over. Make sure, as an agent, for such a seller, if it was me, I always have 2 backup buyers. If I know that my seller's best interest is to get the highest amount, and maybe this property is not there's no bidding war, then I would allow a contingency to get my seller the highest amount, and always have a couple backup buyers. If the property is a property and there's a bidding war, then I remove all contingencies, no questions asked. And it will sell because buyers want the property. Hi, Armando. Hi, Armando from Houston. Thank you for your compliment. Curious what anybody else here, how they use contingencies. Or is this something that you encourage? And if you're not on the live, it's okay. If you're listening to this on the replay, put in the comments below. If you're an agent, how do you use contingencies as a negotiation tool? And if you are a buyer, will you not buy a property? Absolutely not, without a contingency. And this particular buyer that I'm doing the deal with, he said he would never do a deal without a contingency. No questions asked. And he's a savvy buyer. He's a homeowner. He owns a property or 2. He has a successful business. But he said, Margola, I will never risk such an amount of money. We're talking about putting $100,000 down. That's a pretty penny. Irregardless of the purchase price of the home, the price is 1.6. 100,000 may not be proportionally a lot, but it's a lot of money. Nobody's looking to lose 100,000. So he said, absolutely not. There's no way I would risk. Well, he happened to be lucky because he's working with a seller who is willing to trade the contingency with the ability to take his time. Well, he doesn't want to take his time, but at least to work with a buyer who's not under the gun, putting him under the gun that by a certain amount of time, by X date, the property must be vacant or we're bouncing. No, the buyer's willing to wait. So for that flexibility, he's willing to trade a mortgage contingency. Thank you for hopping in. Thank you. And let me know what you think. If you're a seller, would you ever allow a contingency other than circumstances that I just mentioned? If you have any questions about contingencies, hi Robert, hi Hannah, hi Yosef. If you have any questions about this or any comments, put it down below. Thank you for joining, and I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. Even on this rainy day here in Brooklyn, let me know, because a lot of first-time home buyers just don't know. They're not used to tools. They think that only the highest bid wins, and that is absolutely not the case. Removing contingencies can get you the offer, can get you that property, even if the bid is not the highest. Like I said, I did a deal that the bid is substantially a few $100,000 lower than someone else, but he removed all the contingencies, and that was what that particular seller wanted. He wanted the ease and freedom to close ASAP, no headaches. So I hope that was helpful. I kept it a little short today because it's raining, but anything that I didn't answer, anything you want to see discussed, next Tuesday at 2, when we spill more tea on Brooklyn real estate, just put it in the comments below. Take care. Have a wonderful and blessed day.